I'm with Karen Daly with Ekko Title. She is an attorney here. She has been in business for 16 years. She's been with Ekko Title for 2. And I'm talking to her today about the many steps that it takes for a contract to make it to closing. Can you tell everybody, what do you guys do once you get information from a realtor that a contract is going to closing?
Oh, first, usually the contract is emailed to us, at which point I will then say, for me, my practice is to email both realtors and say, congratulations, thank you so much, here's your processor. And usually I have a processor and a pre-processor that work together, and they will send out the information sheets to the sellers and their agent, and then also information sheets will go to the buyer and the buyer's agent.
So you get information from the buyers. You're trying to collect if they are using a lender, you get that information.
Right.
If the sellers have a lender and they have to pay off a loan, you want that information too.
Yes.
And you also, if the home is in an HOA neighborhood, you want the HOA information so that you can figure out if dues are owed.
Correct. Yeah. Yep.
All right, then what's a title search? Tell everyone what that is and what does that entail?
So a title search is where we look at the actual title to the land. A lot of people will say, oh, but this is new construction, or they were the first owners, so we're good. But title goes all the way back to the beginning of time. So what you want to do is you're looking at what we call the chain of title. So you look at the current owner, you see who they bought from, and you go back, and so you're forming a chain, and you want every link to connect.
Okay. Do you have to go to the courthouse to look this up?
So in the old days, yes, and there are some counties in Western Virginia and Southern Virginia that you still need to go to the courthouse and review the documents, but in Northern Virginia, it is all electronic. So you can log online. Of course, you have to have a password and all that fun stuff, but you can log online and get the information that way.
So the person that's doing the research is an abstractor, or they're doing a title search. Are they attorneys?
Sometimes they are.
Okay.
So there are some attorneys who do that, retired, and some even just do it regularly, but most people are not.
Okay. But then if there's a legal opinion of the title, that I assume that person must be an attorney, correct?
Correct, yes, yes.
Okay. What happens if there's a deed that needs to be released from a long time ago? Like you were talking about the chain of title, something's wrong.
Right. So this is actually one of the most common issues that we see. We call it an unreleased deed of trust, and what that means is if someone paid it off when they sold the property, but for whatever reason, that lender did not send in a certificate of satisfaction saying that the lien was released. So what we do is we look at the deed of trust. Usually we're able to track down the title company that did it, or the lender. There's some investigative work that we have to do to get that certificate of satisfaction saying that it's released.
And a lot of times that happens if someone has actually paid off their mortgage. They're great homeowners, they've been financially saving, they paid it off, but the administrative paperwork wasn't filed correctly, and then they find this out before they go to settlement.
Yes. So that's one of the things I say to folks, like, title issues, believe it or not, are very common. 1 out of 3 files have a title issue. This is the most common issue, and so if you have title insurance, this will protect you. And usually we try to get the title search back early, so that way we have time to work on that, because sometimes it's not a quick 24-hour resolution. It can sometimes take some days or a couple of weeks depending on how much investigative work is needed.
Okay, next question is, somebody wants to verify where their property is. A lot of times they will get a plat, or maybe they'll look at a GIS system to see Google Maps, where's my house? But people can actually get a survey.
True.
So tell us, how does a survey get performed? Who does it, and how much does it cost?
So you need a surveyor. So usually someone who's licensed, they've gone through the appropriate licensing steps. Did you know, by the way, that George Washington was the first surveyor?
Very cool.
A little tip there. So the house location survey, you want to do that as opposed to a plat or GIS, and here's why. So your house location survey will tell you where your improvements are. For example, your house, if there's a shed, If they did a patio, like pavers, some fancy, which likes to be done. People like to do that nowadays. A fence, was all of that put at, the house location survey will show the location of all of those. So you can do that. Generally, you're looking, if it's under an acre, you're looking at $300, $350. Small cost for if there's a property dispute later on down the road, right? The other type of survey you can do is a survey with stakes. So this
like
is actually,
steaks you eat?
No, these are stakes you pound into the ground.
Okay.
So yeah, sure. But so what this does, the surveyor, what they do when they stake the property is they're going out and they are finding those either iron pin or iron rods. Okay, those are permanent markers. They're usually in the ground. Sometimes they're buried, so they have to use a metal detector to find them. Sometimes they're not. But what they do once they find them is they will put a stake at that location. So the surveyor is then certifying that pin or that rod where that is located. So if there's an issue later on down the road, when you have a survey with stakes, and again, it has to have stakes for this to apply, the buyer will have legal recourse against the surveyor.
Okay. So you've measured it, you've started to deal with the paperwork, you're looking at the chain of title. What about if you're dealing with a condo or an HOA association? What is the role of the title company?
So what we do in that regard is we will reach out to them and we'll ask for them for an accounting statement. A lot of times they'll say financial update, and you might see a financial update charge to the seller. That's what they like to call it. But that will lay out what needs to be collected from the seller and then from the buyer. So for sellers, it's usually the resale package, their dues, right? Some sellers, if it's at the beginning of the month, they might not have paid, which is common, and that's okay because we prorate on the settlement statement. So, but if they're behind, then we want to know, hey, what do we need to collect that? For the buyer, they will tell us you need to this is how much you need to collect from the buyer. And usually if it's a monthly HOA, like you have monthly HOA dues, we're usually collecting the next month's HOA. If there's a seller credit, we might collect more.
Okay. Now, people a lot of times will ask me as their realtor, should they get title insurance? And I don't feel like that's my area of expertise.
Right.
However, if I ask you that question, people might think, well, you're biased. Of course, you're going to say, yeah, buy it. But can you tell people why would they get title insurance, and do you think you should as a consumer?
Sure. I absolutely always 100% recommend title insurance. And here's why. It's not because of the monetary value. Title insurance will protect your interest in the property for the rest of your life. It also goes back to beginning of time. So what you're doing with title insurance is you are insuring against human error, right? So the title examiner is a human who's pulling the title. The person reviewing the title is also a human. I mean, the one thing that we can't really prevent are errors, human mistakes, right? So title insurance protects against what you don't know. I have had cases where the deal fell apart because there was no title insurance. There was unreleased deed of trust, no title insurance, weren't able to resolve it, and the buyer said, I'm out.
Okay, they just felt like it was too risky.
It was too risky, yeah. I've had deals where the seller is trying to sell the property. They went through some things and something got missed from a prior owner, and it shows up, and the seller doesn't have title insurance, and they don't have enough money to pay off the lien, because the lien has to get paid off. Before you sell the property, that lien has to be paid off. So they have been unable to convey title. It's rare. In that instance, that's rare. But you want title insurance because when you need it, it's for a really big issue, and it really is helpful.
So there's something called the cloud on a title. So
Yes.
is that kind of what that is when you have some kind of issue, that is a cloud on the title.
Right.
Which is what the insurance will help you with.
Correct, because
Like your umbrella.
yes,
Yeah.
it is your umbrella. It protects you against the rain, right? Yes, so it's a fancy cloud on title. Insurable title means that there is a title issue, but the risk is minimal, so we're willing to issue insurance on that. So if it comes up, we will take care of it, right?
Okay. Can you tell everybody what happens when the title company says, hey, everything's good, you're clear to close? Can people go to closing at that point?
If there's a lender involved, no.
Okay.
We have to wait for the lender. The
Okay.
lender is the one who drives the boat. There is a saying, he who has the gold makes the rules, right? The lenders have the gold, so they make the rules.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in a cash transaction, then once you're good to go,
Yeah.
then we could go to closing.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
We look at the title, everything's good, we've got everything, yes.
And then once everything is recorded, then how are the funds distributed?
So most of the time the person getting the funds is the seller. There are a few occasions where a buyer will get money. But what we do at the table when we know that people are getting money is we have them fill out a form telling us how they want those funds dispersed. And the reason we now only do it at the table, so we don't accept changes by phone, fax, or email, is again because of fraud. And I'm sure you guys have heard email accounts being hacked, incorrect information being sent, and the money doesn't get to who it is supposed to. So to protect against that, I always tell sellers, because most of the time it's them, this is now set in stone. If you change your mind, I have to see you and make sure that this is what you want. And that's to make sure, again, the money goes to them, because we take that very seriously.
In case anybody has a question, I am not an attorney. I don't try to play one on TV. They can ask you for questions, and also look at Ekko Title's website for additional title questions. So
And you can always also feel free to email me too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.